Hello everybody and welcome to the Football Philosophy channel, and this is the ratings show after an absolutely stunning game at Old Trafford yesterday where United beat Leeds by 6-2. Who could see that coming? A lot of people thought it might be a game with a lot of goals, although I've got to say when the teams were announced, particularly United's team, there was quite a few people on the show that I did yesterday saying, oh, it's too defensive, 6-2, and it could have been about 12-8. There was that many chances at both ends of the fields. It's such an open game. It was really was unbelievable. In a way, I hate pouring sort of cold water on such a fantastic game as that, but it's sort of unsustainable, that sort of football. Leeds. I've watched the game again today, and Leeds had oodles of chances, and they had even when it was 2-0 they had a good chance. When it was 3-0 they had a good chance. They had plenty of chances later on in the game, and it's just not, to me, out. It seems like teams are not as open as that very often at all. Teams that are going to mount challenges for the league title. If we can mount a challenge for the league title at all, I'll be over the moon. But if we can mount a challenge for the league title playing in too many games like that, I'll be absolutely stunned. I will be shocked if we can play games like that where it's so open and still keep picking the points up, because it can so easily go wrong for you in games like that. But still, as long as it keeps going, fantastic. It was a great win. A couple of fantastic goals. It was brilliant to watch. But this is the ratings show, as I say. So I'll move on to that, onto the ratings very quickly. It's the ratings from the Mirror that we've looked at today. Anybody who's watched the show before, you know that I pick up one of the outlets, I look at their ratings and what they've said about the players. I tell you what I think about what they've said and compare the marks to what I think the player should be marked. And at the end of the show, there'll be a poll on Twitter to see who should be the player in focus, which will be tomorrow, the player in focus. A little bit of news, just very quickly though, before I move on to the ratings. I've noticed on Sky that the Carabao Cup final has been moved. It was scheduled to be on February the 28th, which is a Sunday, and it's been moved to Sunday, April the 25th. They didn't say why. I don't know what's. Obviously, there's been a meeting about that. They've discussed it. There's got to be a reason for it. I'm just trying to think of my own reasons. Maybe put in the comments if you already know the reason, or you can think of a reason. But I'm just thinking, is it just because they think there might be a possibility of half a stadium full of fans, or even a full stadium cup, in another, well, when I say another 2 months' time, it's actually 4 months. It's 2 months until late February, and another 2 months. It's been moved back now until April. So that's an interesting. It's also crossed my mind. Obviously, if there's two Premier League teams in that final, that's probably two Premier League games that get cancelled on February the 28th. With all this, Newcastle have had a game postponed through COVID. There might be one or two other cancellations between now and then. Are they just thinking about maybe it's important not to cancel Premier League games wherever possible? It could be as simple as that, to not fall further behind with Premier League fixtures, and hopefully come April the 25th, we're still sort of in line and looking towards finishing the season on time, as they obviously want to do. But as I say, it is the Carabao Cup. It's Carabao Cup week this week. 2 games tomorrow and 2 games Wednesday. United play Everton on Wednesday, so obviously United could be in that final. They're in the quarter-final. And that on the 28th, by the way, I looked at that. United are due to play Chelsea. So that game will now go ahead. It'll go ahead anyway, definitely. But if United had reached the final and it was still on the 28th, that game would have been postponed. So that's the game that's been saved, if you like, or possibly saved if United reached the final. It's by no means an easy game for United, of course. They've got Everton away in the quarter-final. Everton's last 3 fixtures, they beat Chelsea 1-0, they beat Leicester 2-0, and they beat Arsenal 2-1. So they're on a bit of a run of form at the minute. All good teams, or top clubs that they've played, or good teams. So 3 good wins there. And I've noticed how they're playing Everton. They've got 4 centre-backs across the back. They've got Holgate and Godfrey playing as full-backs, with Yerry Mina and Keane in the middle. So they've got 4 centre-backs at the back. They're playing 5 across the middle, 3 central midfield players, with Iwobi wide left and Richarlison wide left. Iwobi wide right and Richarlison wide left. just Calvert-Lewin up top, and obviously he gets joined by others from the midfield. So they're really tight, Everton, at the minute. I also know that they've played quite strong teams, particularly strong teams in the last 2 games in the League Cup that they've played. So it's going to be a right tough game on Wednesday night. So I'll be looking forward to that one. I'll be previewing that tomorrow and having a guess at what the United team might be for that game. So that's that. Carabao Cup final's been moved. Hopefully we're in it. Hopefully we're still in it come Wednesday night after we play Everton. But onto the ratings. The Mirror Online ratings for the United game against Leeds, the 6-2 game. They've given David De Gea an 8. They've written twice denied Rafinha. The second one a stunning save, they've said, and they've given him an 8 out of 10. I wouldn't disagree with an 8 out of 10 for David De Gea. I thought he made some really good saves, and more importantly, I don't think he certainly had no chance at all with the second goal. I don't think he had much chance with the first goal, and well, as I've just said, it was such an open game. He was called into action a hell of a lot yesterday, David De Gea. So I wouldn't disagree with an 8 out of 10 for him. Wan-Bissaka, they've given a 7. I know I always say this. I know they have to write something, but it just makes me laugh, some of the things that they write. Beaten by Bamba in the air in the first half, although the header went over. That's all they've written. So it's like it's almost like it just makes me laugh. It's like the whole reasoning for giving Wan-Bissaka only a 7, perhaps, was because he got beat in the air. So I'm not, on one occasion. So I'm not sure it makes sense that. But I thought Wan-Bissaka had a decent game. I thought he used the ball well at times. Got caught under it a couple of times. He seems to do that. But I think a 7 was fair enough. I would give him a 7. Lindelof, they've given a 7-2. They've said casually early on, improved thereafter and scored the 4th. They've put, fair enough, that a 7, I think, for Lindelof. They've given Maguire a 7. As vocal as ever, they've put... read the game well and was assured bringing the ball out. Just generalisations, that's all they are. It's all those things that they've said about Maguire are just things that they think about him every week. They're not sort of saying he did anything different, I think, to any game that he plays in. So a 7, but he played okay. You see, I think I've given all the back 4 a 7. There were a lot of chances, and despite the fact a lot of people, like I say, thought it was defensive, the defenders, I don't think they had enough cover. I mean, I've given them a 7. The amount of chances that Leeds had, maybe the defenders should get lower than 7s, but at the same time, I don't think they were protected as well as they need to be. No matter who you've got in defence, they do need protection in midfield, and we were off. I've watched the game again today. Anyone who knows this show knows that I watch it carefully a second time over and try to work out what's going well, what's going wrong, who's playing well, etc. And we were still, for me, too wide open with not enough protection for a back 4. So on another day, if they were to give up so many chances in a game where they were protected well, I'd probably mark them all as a 6 instead. But they had a lot to do with not a lot of cover. So I think a 7's fine. So I agree with a 7 for Maguire. They've given Luke Shaw a 7. His bursting run through the middle first half was indicative of United's industry and intent. That's a fair comment. It's just one thing that they mentioned from the game. I know they can't write War and Peace about each player, but it's just seems a bit futile to me writing one single instance from a game. I prefer to think about the game as a whole, how a player played, and to mention single instances, I don't like it. But he did. I think I know the run that he made. He made a great run through the middle and passed it to Rashford, and United got a corner from it. I think it might be the corner they got a goal from even. But yeah, I would agree. If one of the defenders was worth a bit more than the others, I'd probably say Luke Shaw. But I'll settle for the 7. So 7's all right for Luke Shaw. Scot McTominay, they've given a 9 to. I very, very rarely agree with 9s. Very rarely. I don't think I've given a 9. I've been done this show about 6 times now. I don't think I've given a 9 yet. They've put 2 goals, stunning finishes inside the 3 minutes, set United on the way. And it's also says that he set up James for the 5th. So they just talk about the goals, which is fair enough, I suppose, for a midfield player getting 2 goals, especially 2 goals in the first 3 minutes. I said on the fan cam on the United stand, if you think about it, he's the first and only player, Scot McTominay, to score 2 goals in the first 3 minutes of a Premier League game. The only player ever, when you think of the great goal scorers that have graced this league, the likes of Alan Shearer, Andy Cole, Thierry Henry, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Robin van Persie, Aguero, need I go on? And yet Scott McTominay is the first player ever to score 2 goals in the opening 3 minutes of a game. I think it's an astonishing stat. Little things like that do amaze me. And so as a one-off, because it is a rarity, well, I won't say a one-off, but it is a rarity, I'll agree with a 9 out of 10 for Scott McTominay. I always say, by the way, it's not just about the goals, but he was absolutely awesome, Scott McTominay. The engine on him, I think his stride length helps. He goes past players like they're not there. He set Marshall up with a great chance after quite a long run. He was just absolutely everywhere, winning the ball, passing it well, good runs with the ball. I thought Scott McTominay was awesome yesterday, as well as scoring 2 goals in the first 3 minutes. So I'll settle for that, a 9 for Scott McTominay. I'll agree with it. They've given Fred an 8. As I say, I've just studied the game. I'll reduce that to a 7. He played perfectly okay, Fred, but he just gives the ball away a bit too cheaply a few times for me. They've written his long bursting run through the middle made possible the 3rd scored by Bruno. It's a fair comment, it is true, but as I say, it's one thing that they mention it, and it was a decent run. It was a decent pass for Marshall as well, but a defender got his toe to it, and it went to Bruno, who smashed it in. But for me, Fred, I don't think Fred's worth more than the defenders were worth. I think but maybe he's worth a 7. Dan James, they've given a 7 too. I'll agree with that, a 7. Played his part in United's 3rd goal. This is what caught my eye, what they've written. With a deft flick, the 3rd goal ended up, it was Bruno. It was the build-up for the 3rd goal, it says, which was scored by Bruno. And then they've also put deserved his goal. With a deft flick, the most important part of the bit that Dan James did was actually getting back in position, being in team shape, making an interception. It was his interception that was important, and when he got the interception, he also saw Bruno literally 5 or 8 yards in front of him, and I wouldn't even call it a flick. It was a pass with the outside of his boot. They want to call it a deft flick, but he passed it to Bruno instantaneously, and it was actually Bruno who did a deft flick around the corner. And I think it was Scott McTominay then who drove onto that and ran forward with the ball. But they've given Dan James a 7. I thought he had a decent game, Dan James, and well worth his 7, I would say. So, yeah, I'll agree with that. They've given Bruno an 8. I'm going to go 7 for that. They've given an assist they've said an assist for McTominay's opener, which he did get the assist for McTominay's opener and scored the 3rd and the 6th. He did. He had look. You can't knock a player scoring that. Scoring 2 goals in the game, even though one's a pen. The assist for McTominay. I love Bruno's assists when they're simple, and people often say to me, he's the man who's trying the long ball. He's the one who's trying the flamboyant passes. They rarely lead to goals. And then people turn around to me and say, well, he's got X amount of assists. He has got X amount of assists, but they're nearly all from simple passes. And the assist for Leeds was a sideways pass. It was ever so slightly backwards. If you look at it, not that matters, by the way, but everybody seems to think, or so many people seem to think, that it's his fancy balls over the top and through the middle that are creating goals. Very rarely do they create the goals. It's the simple passes that are creating the goals. And Bruno, as ever, works his socks off. I think an 8 is a little bit over the top. I think a 7 is good enough. So a 7 for Bruno from me. They've given Rashford an 8. I'm giving Rashford a 6. They've said he caused panic in the Leeds defence with quick feet and a quick mind, and his quick mind. Well, I've watched the game back today. Quick feet, definitely. Quick mind, definitely not. The number of times he should have passed it when he was holding it too long for me was just too often to give him an 8 or even a 7. I thought he was, he did cause panic in the defence. But to me, he was causing panic in the defence, holding the ball in and around the penalty area when he should have been passing the ball. Obviously, the players are... When the ball's anywhere near your penalty area, you're not happy. So when someone's got the ball at his feet and someone who is quite quick like Rashford, they are going to be panicking. but nothing came of it. He had a couple of shots blocked, and it was all a bit powder puff to me. And the Marshall won a penalty when Rashford was on a mazy run in their box, and it was going nowhere. He'd actually turned away from the goal, and Marshall sort of nicked it off him, really. I've tried to study it and watch it. Rashford wasn't passing it to Marshall. Marshall took it off him and immediately got tripped up for a penalty. So not for me, not an 8 or even a 7 for Marcus. I'm giving Marcus a 6. And Anthony Marshall, they've given an 8 to. They've put 2 assists, a constant threat up front with his clever movement and clever link-up play. I agree with that. Marshall had a fine game. I could almost take a point off him. I could perhaps. I'm going to give him the 8. They've said an 8. I'm not going to disagree with it. But he did miss. He keeps missing his chances. Everyone who watches this knows that I love Anthony Marshall. I think he's a fantastic player. We'd be a much lesser team without him. We need him up there, holding that ball up, linking the play up. I always say that, how important it is. Without Anthony Marshall yesterday, he makes that much difference to me that we might not have even won that game without him playing. He's that important to us. So I will stick with an 8, but he's got to start putting those chances in. The 2 chances that he missed yesterday, at least one of those 2 chances has got to go in the back of the net. So he's missed a couple the other week. I can't remember who that was against. He's missed a couple again this weekend. He's got to start putting his chances away. But we couldn't do without him. He was superb overall. So that was rating the ratings, my ratings compared to the Mirror online ratings. I'll be doing a poll on Twitter later on Rick the Red UK. I've chosen 4 players. We haven't got time to have people to vote on who the players should be. So I've chosen 4 players. I've given Fred a 7. I've given Dan James a 7. I've given Bruno a 7. And I've given Marcus Rashford a 6. Those 4 players will be in a poll on Twitter. People can vote on it. There's usually over 2,000 people vote, and we can see who will be the player in focus. And then tomorrow evening, there'll be a player in focus on YouTube, and I'll be mentioning clips that'll be on Twitter, action clips that you can see from that particular player's game, whoever wins the poll. So that's that for rating the ratings. It'll be a player in focus tomorrow. Obviously Wednesday night, it's coming thick and fast. The day after tomorrow is the Everton game, so there'll be 2 little shows tomorrow. There will be the player in focus, but there'll also be, I might link them together, but there'll be at least one show tomorrow. I've obviously got to have a look at the Everton game, the forthcoming Everton game, and have a go at what I think the team might be. Ollie will do a press conference probably about 1:30 tomorrow. We'll find out if there's any injuries or any further injuries, and see who's fit and who's not fit, anything else he's got to say. So I'll be back tomorrow afternoon with player in focus, and also whether it's the same show or a separate show, previewing the Everton game. I hope you've enjoyed that little show. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe. Please tell all your friends. If you didn't enjoy it, don't tell anyone. Keep stum.